Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of WeTheJ6ers.com. I am one of the co-founders of the website and mission and organization, Barry Ramey, and where what we are doing now for 4 years and longer, in some cases, some of these men and women's voices have been silenced that were caught up in the prosecutorial process of January 6th. They were not allowed to speak to the media. They were not allowed to come forward and tell their side of the story. They were prevented from doing so in multiple facets and different ways through the Bureau of Prisons and Department of Justice. And while that was being done, the media was on an onslaught of labeling and characterizing falsely these men and women as domestic terrorists without giving the public a chance to hear who they are. At WeTheJ6ers.com, we're making progressive steps in order to have their voices heard to the American public so they can make an opinion about themselves, an informed one from the words and the stories from these men and women. We know right off the bat that there's some people out there on both sides of the aisle that are not going to agree with them politically or even on that day. But what we hope to expose and show is that some of these men and women, all of them are really good people, average citizens that were mischaracterized by a corrupt government as being domestic terrorists. And we hope to prevent that from happening in the future again. So one of the people we are going to be bringing up today is Mr. Chris Quaglin. And Chris is a January 6er. Chris's story has been told throughout the realm of the J6 community. And Chris has got an interesting one because Chris did not have it very easy in jail, mostly pretty much all the way by the system itself. And I got the unluxury of getting to witness some of that. So Chris, how the hell are you today, broski?
Doing better. Thank you for having me.
How's that super awesome tattoo that you just got coming along?
I just got the wrap off. It's almost there. I got another 8 hours for the arm, give or take, probably 4 or 5 hours on the arm. And then we're going to do the ribs going down. That's going to get I think it's going to be another 4 or 6 stripes on there. So that's going to be fun.
Oh yeah. You're doing anything on the ribs too?
Yeah, the red stripes coming up, the tattered stripes coming up and down.
Yeah, you're going to love that, buddy.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
All right, so let's get into the brass tacks of this. With you in your situation, your story is very long, and it's rightfully so. You went through the fucking ringer, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to J6 trials and tribulations, especially when it comes to harsh treatment in the jail facilities. And one facility sticks out in particular to me because it's one that A, I was at with you, but B, other than seeing you passing in the hallways, usually in handcuffs being taken to the shoe, I never got a chance to actually be in a unit with you. And every unit I did go to, everyone would always ask me, have you ever met Quagmire? So I got a chance to finally meet you in DC, but let's talk about Northern Neck for a second, because man, that is one hell of a place. That place needs to be shut down. What say you?
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I went back to Northern Neck as soon as I was released, almost. Went back to Northern Neck, stayed at a supporter's house for a couple days. Did two things. Once, I went to go pay my respects, and I went to the superintendent and I asked him for a job, and as a free man. And then I went to the which they're not doing anymore. I went to the board of directors, I guess monthly board meeting. And I spoke for about 4 minutes, and I told them about I concentrated on the first 3 weeks that I was there, where I lost 30 pounds, caught COVID, lost 30 pounds, thrown in the shoe, put into a disciplinary pod, all because I was not being fed. For those of you who don't know, I have celiac disease. So that whole gluten-free thing.
You're diagnosed. Like
I'm
it's
diagnosed with
you.
25 years, 30 years.
Yeah, this is a medical file that you have on record. This isn't just some liberal white chick that's gluten-free for a week every month.
Yeah. So
Right.
it's not that. I've been diagnosed since I was 12 and a half years old. My aunt almost died. My uncles have it. My aunts have it. My mom has it. My sister has it. My son has it. It's a well-known diagnosis. And Ted Hull for a year tried his hardest to make it so that I didn't, or to prove that I didn't have celiac.
And Ted Hall is the superintendent of Northern Neck Regional Jail in Warsaw, Virginia. Superintendent at the time. He stepped down currently, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
After, strangely enough, he stepped down right after the FBI did a full investigation in Northern Neck.
I didn't even know that part. That's news to me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The marshals and the FBI did a full investigation of Northern Neck, and then they yanked all of us out.
That's
right
when
after that
is that when we left and started
Yeah.
going to Lewisburg and other places? And
Yeah.
okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was among the first 5 that left.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I never thought going to a United States penitentiary in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania would be considered a breath of fresh air and fucking freedom compared to Northern Neck Regional Jail in Warsaw, Virginia. Holy shit.
Yeah. Again, we were fed. They didn't give us, forget about my diet, right? That I needed for medical reasons. They didn't give us the federal diet. Not even close. I mean, the food that we were eating was just absolutely disgusting. In between the roaches and the mice that we saw running on the trays, again, I have a lot of documentation. Thank God that I have it. I have no idea. It's only by God's grace that I was able to get 90%, 80% of my documentation for those 4 years out. I still don't know how I was able to do it. It was just by the skin of my teeth.
I would mail everything out. Every time I wrote something or had something, I would send a copy out. And fortunately, it all made it.
Yeah. There was too much to do that. So in between other inmates hiding my paperwork in their cells, in between supporters having, like, not my lawyer, but a lawyer just show up that they would pay for, a couple, $500-600 for a lawyer to show up there, meet me for 15 minutes, take my stack of papers and say, all right, see you later. Just stuff like that.
Yeah, that's that's a story in and of itself.
Yeah.
So, you're suffering. You lost 30 pounds in Northern Neck.
60 total.
60 total. Finally, your lawyers are able to. You opened up lawsuits. You opened up a series of lawsuits, from my understanding. Is that correct?
Yeah. My lawyer kind of screwed the pooch on that. He opened it up, and then he didn't. All he had to do is present the evidence that I presented, but he was listening to other people, and he said, oh, well, you have to go through it and this and that. And no, just dump it into the government's. If they would have dumped it into the government's lap, my proof was all there. I mean, everything was documented exactly how it happened. That's all he had to do. And he screwed something up, and he didn't put any exhibits in. So now we had this lawsuit in, but there were no exhibits. So the exhibits were all of my, signed copies of grievances and stuff like that. So again, it's just the DOJ playing games, and the DOJ and McFadden were just like, oh, yeah, he's making up the whole thing. Well, He's not making up the whole thing. I have documentation on it. So now McFadden is like stuck, right? Because now I right before sentencing, 2 days before sentencing, I dropped all that information on the record, paid tens of thousands of dollars for a private lawyer to do that. That's also why I got 12 years, because I royally pissed off the establishment.
Yeah.
When I did that. But I knew we were getting out on the 20th. So
Yeah, well, I mean, I knew it had potential, but I was nervous for a lot of different reasons. I was talking with some J6ers, and there's some of us that have been in contact with people in the know, we'll just call them, that are not happy with the way that some of us, a lot of us, most of us, if not all of us, were treated in the Bureau of Prisons custody. And we've come up with an individual that worked in the counterterrorism unit in West Virginia named Joshua Klobe. And this individual allegedly was making calls to all the different facilities we were at and prisons we were sentenced to and designated to, and purposely making them do things to us to have a hard time. We're going to be initiating some FOIA requests with this individual's name in it to see that. But this name wasn't just given to us by somebody. This was given to us by somebody that would know. But yeah, it's definitely something we're going to be looking into.
yeah, I mean, I know that you and I were both going to CMUs if Trump didn't win.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's where I was headed.
Yeah,
You know,
they told me they wanted me to go there. They had paperwork from the counterterrorism unit that was trying to send me to a CMU at Terre Haute.
Yep.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and for us to go to a CMU, for those of you, it's a communication management unit. They have no phone calls. They have very, very limited mail coming in and out.
It's a maximum security place for they have. Put it this way: the movie with Tom Hanks, the Somalian pirate that took all those people hostages, he's at Terre Haute Communications Monitor Unit.
Yeah, I mean,
an ISIS leader is there.
Yeah, they have Al Qaeda members. They have ISIS members, to the point where I was told that a few of them, when they go down from ADX, which is in
Colorado,
which is the max, it's the new Alcatraz.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know. So when they come down from ADX, they go to one of these CMUs, and they're treated better at ADX. So they're almost like they want to either stab someone or whatever, just so they'll get bumped back up to ADX. A lot of people will.
Yeah, I heard that a lot. I heard that a lot.
Yeah.
So at Northern Neck, in all of your time there, maybe not even relevant to your situation, but what was the most egregious and foul thing you ever witnessed from the faculty at Northern Neck? And I'm sure that list is long, but limit it to probably the worst and the two worst.
Worst single incident. I was in the hole, surprise, surprise, but they had it as CPOD, right? Because the hole was so filled up that they needed another whole pod to do the hole.
Right.
So guys were like throwing paper towels, right? Wet paper towels at the window, right? Because there's that big long row of windows there that there's a hallway there, and that's where the guards go. So guards would, walk up and they'd whip a towel, wet paper towel. And these were just two stupid white kids, right? Like they're just kids, right? So they're hitting these windows, bong, big old spitballs, right? Well, the one kid throws it, and he doesn't realize, because of where the cells are, the guard had just walked in the door, and the guard was, I don't know, some black woman, and it didn't hit her. It did come close, but it didn't hit her. So she comes back. Oh, I'm going to get you, white boys, blah, 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 blah. She leaves, comes back with the goon squad. So they shackle and handcuff behind the back these two kids. The one kid says, listen, it was me who did it. It wasn't even him. Put him back in the cell. You know what I mean? We're good. And now they were totally complying. You know what I mean? They're all shackled up at this point, legs and handcuffed behind the back. So the one guard goes, you're going to do exactly what I tell you to do. And he kicks this kid in the small of the back while he's complying and walking through the doorway. Of course, that's right underneath the camera, so the camera can't see him. Well, he falls forward and he bites a metal and concrete windowsill, and he shatters all of his teeth all the way to the back. He had like 2 or 3 molars left. Now, his teeth were pretty messed up from doing a lot of meth, but that was like one of the worst things. Also, a couple months after that, they handcuffed me behind my back, and then left me in a cell because I was going to a medical, some sort of medical thing. I don't know whether I was getting an endoscopy or whatever it was. So they brought me up to the front, and they handcuffed me behind my back, put me in the cell, and then they forgot about me for about 8 hours. So after about an hour, my arms were completely numb. You can imagine after 8. So my shoulders actually still messed up. Like if I ever sleep on this side, it hurts for 3-4 days. And that happened, after that. So those two things were like one of the worst that the guards did. Yeah,
and I mean the stories are endless, but you were bounced around from a lot of different pods. They definitely seemed like they had a hard on for you. They not like
like
you
32 times in a year.
Yeah, I remember the only time I ever saw you in Northern Neck, I seen you get brought into one of the units, and then 10 minutes later, I seen you dragged out of the same unit in handcuffs.
Yep.
So it was.
I made it to the honor pod 3 times. One was for 10 minutes or 30 minutes. One was for 2 days, and then one was for like, I think, a week. And then I was supposed to make it with the rest of you guys because they had me in medium. So they had all you guys in low.
Mm-hmm.
They had raised me to medium custody to try to get me hurt. And then it was only supposed to be like 2 more days, and I was supposed to go in with you guys. Now, it really didn't matter because we all got moved out of there very shortly after that.
Yeah.
But of course, they told me that, they wrote me up for some BS reason, and, I refused to leave. I was like, no, this is crazy. It's a HIPAA violation. That's what it was. It was something about medical. And they're like, well, you have to do this. And I was like, no, I don't have to do anything. You're breaking HIPAA laws right now. Like HIPAA laws trump everything else. So, and I was right, but then they grabbed me up and whatever. I got into a scuffle with one of a couple of the COs, and then off to the disciplinary pod again.
Yeah. Yeah. You seem to like that place.
Yeah.
So let's get into your trial, because it's really, we all get to know each other pretty intimately, being locked in those tight cells and units together. We're in DC, we're all in one room, we're all talking about each other's cases for the most part. And we get to see a lot of different, for the lack of better words, effed up things that the prosecution is doing to one another. And they really did pull some stunts with you constantly. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about some of the things that the Department of Justice did to Chris Quaglin during his trial and preparation for trial.
So, well, for 3 years, I never had my discovery. That's number one. They finally gave me a laptop for a month, 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks. And you'd say, oh, that's a lot of time. Well, my discovery was 1.75 terabytes, not including videos of the 44,000 hours. I never got the 44,000 hours. I never got evidence.com, which we were supposed to get. On top of that, for 3 years, they held over my head which I found out through a lawyer, if I basically testified on Proud Boys and testified on, it wrote a statement about Roger Stone, that I would get time served.
Yeah, they pulled the same stunt with Enrique Tarrio. They were willing to just drop all charges against him if he would lie about Donald Trump talking with him, which was an egregious lie about January 6th prior. Instead, he got 22 years for not going along with their BS.
So Melissa Jackson, this is in the very beginning. It was August of 21. Melissa Jackson and Judge McFadden go into an ex parte breakout room. This is all video court, right? Which they're not supposed to do. And they shoot into another room. It's on the record. I mean, we have to get it. Eventually we're going to FOIA it and we'll get it. But they basically say, hey, we need to put pressure on Quaglin because he's a family man, right? So let's yank him out of Jersey. Let's get him to DC where we can, put more pressure on him. I had just gotten my discovery there in Jersey. It never got moved with me, of course. Then I was given it again in DC. I went to Oklahoma, then DC. DC CTF or DC DCF or whatever it is, then CTF in the Patriot Pod. Well, my discovery was dropped off to me there. I only stayed there a month and a half. They had not fed me at all, but I was living off of commissary. All the guys had, chipped in, threw some stuff together, and then I was allowed to buy off of. I would cash app other people and then use their cash to then buy more food. So I had like $1,000 stocked up of commissary, and they didn't like that because now they knew that I was eating. Well, then they moved me 2 months later. I was one of 3 people. They moved me again without my discovery to Lewisburg. Well, I was only there for 2 months. Then they moved me again to Alexandria. Then they moved me again. I was only there for a week. Then they moved me to Northern Neck where I lost the 60 pounds.
The good old diesel therapy.
Then they moved me again back to DC.
How many times were you moved in total?
New Jersey, Oklahoma, DC, DC CTF, Lewisburg, Alexandria, Northern Neck, Rappahannock, DC, DC CTF. That was all pretrial. So 10, I think.
Yeah.
10 different jails.
It's a pretty arduous and toll-taking process to be shackled, handcuffed, sometimes black boxed, which is a little box preventing your wrists from moving. And, you're shackled to your waist. Your hands and your feet are shackled, and you're sometimes on these buses for 17 hours at a time. And they're moving you from place to place to place to place to place, all before trial, just simply to break you down to accept one of their bullshit pleas. And not only that, the taxpayer is paying for this. It costs $2,000 to $10,000 to move an inmate, and the taxpayer is paying for this so the prosecution can break a person down before trial and get them to sign a plea.
Yep. They gave me Maria Rodriguez, who was like lawyer number 6. I'm $250,000 in debt at this point. Excuse me. And Maria Rodriguez hands me a piece of paper as trial is starting. Now, she's only spent 3 hours with me total. So she hands me this paper and she says, sign it. Oh, my wife has also just filed for divorce a week before this.
Oh.
And I knew that the feds had gotten to her because she went to me and I called her up and she said, why did you do it? I'm like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? First thing, what are you doing right now? Like, we're about to go to trial and you're going to ask me why I did it on a recorded line?
On a recorded line, yeah. It's very clear what's happening there.
She's like, no, you need to tell me right now why you did it. And I'm like, she's like, no, you need to tell me. And I was like, I can't do that. And, whatever. So that broke me. But my lawyer hands me this letter and says, sign it and I'll get you house arrest. Go home and save your family. It's not too late.
Clear indication that your attorney is working with the prosecution.
100%.
Yeah.
And then I told her to pull it back within the 14 days. I have the text messages. Like, we gave it to Judge McFadden prior to the election. I gave it to him, all these text messages and stuff. It was on the GTL tablet. I said it was there. So it's all we have to do is FOIA it, and we'll get the actual, like FOIA'd whatever. But it was there. And I said, I demand that you pull this back. And then I talked to lieutenants and this and that, because she told me, no, I'm not going to do that. Which is, you can't do that. Like, you work for me. Yeah. And she told me no. And then I told her, she said, well, go send a letter. So I sent letters, but then I had to get lieutenants involved and this and that and that. And that was when I was freaking out, because I'm like, what do you mean I can't send a certified letter? Get me the green slip, pull it however you want to do it, pull it out of my funds. Like, but I have 8 days to send this, or 4 days at that point, to send this certified letter out. I have 15 days in total. That's it. And I was like, I have 4 days to send this letter out. It needs to be sent out right now. And they were like, oh, well. And then they came back to me, 2 months later. And they're like, hey, just to let you know, we totally revamped the whole process of sending out certified letters because of you. Yeah. Well, that's great, but you screwed me. Like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
when you were at Northern Neck, were you having your attorney appointments canceled for, ominously for no reason, and your court hearings not set up on the video? Did you find a lot of that?
Not only that, but they banned Joe McBride because after I got assaulted, I went like this and I showed him the 8 stitches that I got, and he put it on Instagram or whatever he did. So they banned him from video visits.
It is my firm belief that those actions like that specifically are from this Klob individual. Phone calls made from this Klob individual, emails sent to the jail. I haven't confirmed that. I just want to be clear. But it's my firm belief that he was the one pulling the strings to make these types of things happen to us while we were in jail. And I believe that there's a paper trail to prove it. So when you're ready to file your FOIAs, I want to give you this name to add to.
Yeah, and man, we have a book coming out. Like I said, the guy down in Florida met up with me, and he heard my story somewhere. I don't know where. And he was like, dude, like, we need to talk. And he's an excellent writer. He's now created the outline of what is going to be this book. He says it's going to be well over 1,000 pages. He says, because we're going to dive deep into it, stuff like that you're talking about. And we're going to show the proof.
If anyone's ever had the luxury of being in jail with you, we know it's going to be over 1,000 pages. There's no, just make sure those pages are gluten-free, buddy.
But it's going to really dive into it, and we're going to show what they did. I mean, it was a weaponized government.
Oh, 100%.
People don't understand that. I still get on TikTok and I'm arguing with lefties, and they're like, oh, you had your due process. You had your due process. Yeah. What due process? There was no due process.
Just being in DC alone, we could not be afforded due process. It was impossible to have a jury of our peers. It was impossible.
Of course. So there's that. There's not getting discovery. There's being kept from our lawyers.
Not being able to access our discovery, even
if we did access our discovery. And do you know that they had a room? The one woman told me, she goes, they got 150 computers down there.
Was that Northern Neck?
No, in DC.
Oh, yeah. They have a full discovery room, yeah.
They have a full, no, but I'm saying laptops.
Mm-hmm.
They have 150 laptops sitting there.
And they're given one or two at a time
They're
and
given
making
one
you
or
wait
two.
3 or 4 months to get it, if you even get it. Lawyers have to get involved. It was ridiculous.
I mean, the fact is, they never. The amount of times. It was only until I got to prison after 3.5 years of this bullshit, or over 3 years. When I was pre-trial, I never got 3 meals in a day that I could eat. Not once. Not once. Not that we're gluten-free 100%.
All the while you're preparing for trial, you need to think, you need to be on your best, you need calories and energy to do that. They know this. This is not, they're not stupid. They know this.
They knew what they were doing to us, and they did it purposefully. Yeah. It's not just us, but they ramped it up for us.
Yeah, well, the fact that they're able to do this shows that they do this to people and certain individuals, and it needs to stop. And that's actually the mission of WeTheJ6ers.com. We're not trying to build sympathy or pity parties for January Sixers, our plights, or our stories. We want to go forward sharing our stories so we can end the legislation that allows the ability for any political party, whether Republicans or Democrats, to weaponize the Justice Department, weaponize the media against their political opponents. And so we can go forward and make sure this never happens to anybody, including Democrats. So that's the mission of WeTheJ6ers.com. It's not just to tell our stories, but the problem is that Quaglin is very brilliantly touching on is that there was being sentenced to jail, being sent to jail or sentenced to prison. That's your punishment. Being locked in a cell, being excommunicated from society, not being able to eat when you want to eat what you want to eat, move when you want to move. That's your punishment. The J6ers had extra steps put on them by a nefarious Department of Justice, particularly Merrick Garland. And they had extra things done to us on purpose to elicit false testimonies, to elicit pleas that were not warranted, to elicit people cooperating against one another. They did things to them on purpose that is against the Constitution, the 8th Amendment, because it's cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah, I mean, we had 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th amendments or constitutional amendments broken.
Oh, yeah. No, 4th for sure.
So after, and people are listening, right? And that's the one good thing that's going to come out of this is prison reform and a weaponized government and everything else. Because you're doing We the J6ers. I got j6tour.com, right?
Yep.
So then they are listening because like my interrogation, right? Which is disgusting in itself. And I don't know. I demanded, my lawyers got it, but it got 3.4 million views in 48 hours before the Fed shut down. That was only on X, only just off of my actual views. So like it got out there. Then on top of that, when I went to Northern Neck, it got something like 190,000 views in like 4 or 5 days, right? And I didn't even realize, but because of that HB 2105, so there was always a bill that he's actually a lefty, but he's a liberal, but he's a real liberal, like a 1970s Democrat.
They exist. They're few and far between these days, but they are out there.
So,
they all voted for Trump.
He created this, or she, I'm not even sure. But they created this bill, and they were going to put it in front of the House and the Senate of Virginia. And they were told 6 months to 8 months it might get in front of the House and the Senate. Well, I went in front of Northern Neck, and I told them what I told them, and I was told it went like wildfire through the Virginia House, Senate, all throughout the government of Virginia. And basically, I tell these government workers that they better give up a bigger fish or they're going to jail themselves. And within 4 days, HB 2105, the woman's name is Tribble. And there's a husband and they're both lawyers, husband and a wife. So they created this bill, and it was supposed to go in front of the Senate, in between 6 to 8 months ahead. Well, she got a phone call, and they're like, get this bill in front of us immediately, make whatever changes you need. We need it now. It got thrown in front of the House and the Senate of Virginia State Congress and the Senate, and it was unanimously passed. So what that does is HB 2105 so when I lost the 30 pounds in 3 weeks, it went into the Epoch Times or the Epic Times.
Epic Times. Say it right.
Huh?
Say it right. It's Epic Times.
Epic Times. So it went in front of the Epic Times like 3 weeks in a row, and it went national news. Well, all people from across the nation, thank you for doing this, Patriots, called not only the jail, but then called the local sheriff's department. The local sheriff's department said, hey, that's not our jurisdiction. What HB 2105 does is it says any abuses inside of this jail or inside of any of the jails, because these are all private run facilities, right? So they said any abuses that take place inside of this that are documented and or reported, and your people can call up the sheriff's department and report this stuff, right? So now it's up to the local, not the local, but either the state police or the sheriff's department. Now the sheriff's department are elected positions, so then it brings it back down to the people. I understand it's kind of like the hen house or the fox watching the hen house, but it's one more step of corruption that they have to do. So what it does is, you get beat up by a bunch of guards. It's no longer one of the Hayes brothers that is working the internal affairs for one of the Hayes brothers, which then is the supervisor for one of the other Hayes brothers. So now it brings someone else on top of that. And he might be like, hey, listen, dude, I'm not losing my job. I'm not going to jail for you. Like, I don't care. I understand we went to school, but I'm not going to jail for you.
Sure. We need to stop the investigators investigating themselves.
Right. And that's what this does, even though it's kind of the point of j6tour.com. And I'm praying that we need big funding. We need at least like 150 grand, and it's just not happening right now. But we need some big time donors. We need to get an RV, and the whole point of the J6 tour is to go to all 48 continental United States and talk to the Republican clubs, talk to college campuses. And every stop, it's going to be a little different, right? College campuses are going to be different than the Republican clubs.
Sure.
But it's to get these people involved in their local governments, because it has to start at your local government. If it wasn't for the Northern Neck Patriots, HB 2105 would have never, Tom Jeffries and Maurice Johnson and Cheryl Johnson, would have never then talked to the Tribbles, who then would have created this bill. So it has to start on a local level. And
sure.
That's what we're trying to do, is really to go, because it can't just be, hey, yeah, there's this short dude in a cowboy hat with a Trump, shirt and an American flag.
Bag of Big Macs at 9 a.m. in Washington, D.C.
It can't just be, hey, he showed up with the governor and for one day, and all of a sudden, hey, this is going to happen. The only way it's going to happen is it's going to have to be local people calling up day in, day out, calling, writing letters, showing up, saying, hey, what about this? That's how it's going to happen.
Well, that
because
people don't realize how important local elections are, and we're never going to change. I don't care if Donald Trump's in the office. I mean, yes, he's one of the greatest presidents ever to walk the earth, in my personal opinion. But we need change at the local level. We have to start winning school boards. We have to start winning city
yep,
council. We have to start getting these fake ass Republicans out of office, and that's the primary process, ladies and gentlemen. One that conservatives don't seem all too fucking familiar with, and it drives me out of my mind.
yep,
So that's actually one of the main messages of J6, we the J6ers.com too, is that, we need to get involved in our local elections. So that's I'm really happy to hear that's part of your missions at J6tour.com, because it is is very important. And our platform that we're given with this whole J6 thing, it's very limited, Chris. It's going to wear out soon. And there's people that, in my humble opinion, are actively seeking to make sure people don't care what J6ers say, because the crap that they're saying is just ridiculous. But that's another story in and of itself. But we have a small window where our voices are going to be amplified, and if we don't seize those opportunities to help Americans get to these polls and continue this America First agenda, then well, it's all for nothing. November 5th was so.
Yeah, that's why we're really trying. I mean, Barry, obviously, I'm gonna call you up and I'm gonna say, hey, listen, we got funding now. Where am I going to fly you out to? You know what I mean? You want to hit the big ones. I know you want to go to Berkeley. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I don't mind going to Berkeley, but I'll be bringing a bunch of them boys with me, if you know what I
mean. and we will. And that's another huge part of it is security. Like Charlie Kirk's security team is ridiculous.
Yeah. And it's sad that it has to be, but it has to be.
But like, we're talking to the woman who set up Charlie Kirk in the beginning. Like, we're dealing with her. We're dealing with StopHate.com, David Summerall. We're dealing with Trennis Evans. You know what I mean? Even though some of these guys I've never really dealt with before, David Summerall, obviously I have. But I want to bring it in so that I think the tour is how you talk about we only have a select amount of time. If we can move the agenda to not only J6, but a weaponized government overreach, right? And these are the three things that we're talking about: government overreach, the real story of J6, and prison reform. Sure. If we can get, and we don't have to talk about J6 every single spot. If we just talk about government overreach and and prison reform, I don't care if there's a bunch of Democrats in the crowd. How can you, true Democrats, true liberals?
Yeah, there's the thing liberals, there. Because
like, how can you be against that? You know what I mean? You can't. You see this, the government, the government overreach, they're gonna disagree with, but the prison reform, how can you be against that?
Well, I think you're right in the sense that there is an open window and opportunity for us to sit down and have a talk across the aisle. And yes, I do believe that true Democrats will get behind us. I worry about the progressive pushback because simply, we're MAGA supporters. So we're the Nazis, we're devils, all the crap they say. And that's fine. I think at least that wing is dwindling down as normal Americans that are more apolitical are paying attention and not listening to the rhetoric coming from that far left group of imbeciles, quite frankly.
Right.
But we have a lot of work to do for sure. And we do have to start being willing and able to talk across the aisle, because one thing on my show, The American Rising, that we're trying to point out is that there is a rising happening within Democrats, within people that were told to vote Democrat, with the Black community, Hispanic community, even the gay community, that are seeing the bullshit and they're rising up and saying, no more, I'm not voting for this anymore. So these are the people that we need to highlight and welcome with open arms, because they've always been welcome. They've just been told by their own people that they're not. And so good kudos to them for taking that brave step to walk forward. I remember the first time I came out of the Trump closet, and it wasn't very friendly in my world. So, hats off to them.
Yeah, listen, we're never going to get that 30%, right? We just need to move. There's 30% here, there's 30% here. We might get a couple of that 30%, maybe 5%, whatever, 10%. Great. But that hard left is always going to be there, right? We're never going to move that 15%, whatever, those people, right? So screw it. Let them do their thing. But if we can get out of that 40% in the middle, you have, let's say, 2020, a little bit more right, a little bit more left. If we can get that 20% of that left to move over to the right, and then we can get that 20% that's in the right, and we can get half of them to move over even more further to the right, then we won. It will be a blowout at year after year after year after year.
I think we're in that, to your point, I think we're in that smooth position where we have momentum. So if we keep going and we keep doing it right, and we don't have bad actors that are out there doing dumb shit on our behalf, that we can continue to have a positive conversation and get people on our side to see our points of views. Real quick, we have a message from Hoa, if I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry. If you want to get how MAGA is viewed from outside Chile, please interview me. I am completely open to that. If you are on X, go to my X page at We the J Sixers and send me a DM, and we can set that up, because I'm definitely eager to talk about that. I also would like to talk about what it's like in Chile as far as socialism and Marxism and what you notice there, and how you would feel about Argentina, because me personally, I'm a huge fan of Mele. I got to shake his hand at CPAC. That was an awesome moment. And good to see them rising up against communism over there in Argentina. God bless those brothers and sisters. So yeah, if you want to DM me on X at We the J Sixers, I would love to talk to you. So Chris, let's go forward. What prison were you in? What did you end up getting designated to?
Over 1,000 miles away from my house, as the crow flies. I was in Wisconsin. I was in Oxford.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
one, just one more way that they were going to screw with me.
Yeah.
They weren't done screwing with me, man. They moved me 4 days before my divorce hearing, where I was pro se. So I was the lawyer. They undervalued my house by $250,000. Of course, the judge that I have.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. So they undervalued my house by $250,000, took out, they didn't even count $100,000 that was in the bank account, which I didn't even know. That's another story. So they gave her all the money. They gave her the house. They had me get hit from before she even filed for divorce. For 4 years, they hit me at $500 a week for child support, saying that I made over $100,000 and I wasn't making any money. The whole thing, and of course, the judge has ties. It was talked about years ago that this judge was going to DC. They have ties, big ties into the Democrat Party. So that's how, and I know it's like, hey, put on your tinfoil hat, but this is what they did. They moved me to Oklahoma City 4 days before this divorce hearing. So I didn't show up, so I couldn't even rebut anything that this lawyer was saying. So I haven't held my son yet. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, I know you're going through some issues there too.
So, like, then they moved me to Terre Haute, then they moved me over here, then they moved me over there, then they finally moved me to Wisconsin. And it's like, I think it's like a I don't even want to speculate. I think it's like a 42-hour drive, and
Wow.
it's like it was like a 15. No, it was more than that. From Oklahoma City, from Philly, where we all got thrown, to Oklahoma City, to this place, to that place, to that place, to that, to finally my destination. It was like a month-long trip.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It clearly is a form of torture. You know?
And of course, I got thrown immediately in the hole at Oklahoma City, even though I didn't do anything wrong, because I was deemed a domestic terrorist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but all the J6ers weren't like that.
A lot of us, some of us weren't. Yeah, I know I was. That's how I was treated while I was
Proud
there.
of you, boy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but that's what I really hope that, and the mission going forward for all of us, and I can speak for us clearly, that we need to end the practices as diesel therapy, not just for the taxpayers, but for the person going to trial. They're supposed to be innocent unless proven guilty. And when you're treating them like they're guilty to break them down to accept your plea, you're not giving them a fair chance to prove their case. And you know this. They know that what they're doing, consciously know it. And I think that these practices need to be ended for once and for all. And that's, part of the many facets of our mission going forward. But that is the mission going forward, as showing a lot of the American people are completely unaware that these practices go on. And that, I think that's what God instilled in the voices of the J6ers. We're going to let this be known to the public, what the BOP is doing, what the Department of Justice is doing, at the expense of your taxpayer and at the expense of humanity, because a nation is only judged by how it treats its least of citizens. And let's face it, that's what prisoners are, aren't they? And we're not doing a very good job. And there's been a lot of communities out there that have been screaming this at the top of their lungs for many, many years. We haven't been paying attention. I'm sorry it took this to get there, but it is what it is. And we're paying attention now. So let's continue to have these conversations.
Yep. We're here
so
now.
Chris, I'm going to give the last bit to you, as long as you need to let anybody know anything you want to talk about, anything you left out, anything you think the American public needs to know, and where can they follow you and see your work?
So it's a little scattered, but it's on Insta and TikTok. It's and also hold on one second. On Discord, Insta, Telegram, WhatsApp, TikTok. It's all the Persecuted Patriot. You can go to j6tour.com. And at the bottom, first thing you can buy a cool flag like this, right? It says J6 was an inside job. There's other t-shirts similar to this. We got some really, really cool designs. All of that. We'd rather have you get something rather than just say, hey, donate, right?
Right.
And we'd rather have you get something.
And you're using this money to fund your tour, correct?
That's we're trying, but we need to get some we really do need to get some bigger donors. So the point of this is to get a cheapo RV, right? 25 grand, something like that. Get it wrapped. That's another 7-8, right? So now you're in 30, 32. Food, $5 grand to start, let's just say, gas and all that stuff. So now you're in 35. So then with that 100, you can start, you're going to need more swag. We have the big flags, but we're going to need tents. We're going to need chairs. All this stuff can either be donated or whatever, but we need the initial funds to start this tour. We have the dates set up, or not the dates, but like the places where we're going to go. We have already reached out to 20 or 30 college campuses. We have 70 plus Republican places that, Republican clubs that want to have us out there. If we get the van or the RV, then we're no longer relying on other people to crash at their house. And even though we will once in a blue moon, but it can up our people to, from 2 people to, 3, and then we can bring in a fourth, and with 4 people you can talk for 2-3 hours, and talk about this stuff at the larger events. And I think it really needs to happen. And it's not just, oh, hey, Chris wants to go on tour. There's a message that needs to get out. So if anyone has any rich uncles that are, conservative and want to have a sit down, dude, we need funding. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Obviously, you're doing a great thing here with the podcast and everything. This is basically force feeding it down someone's throat. And that I'm one of the better ones to force feed something down someone's throat.
Yeah. When you get going, it's getting you to shut up. That's the trick.
Yeah. But
you always have a good message, and you're a passionate individual. So it's, I got a lot of respect for you.
I'm trying. I think it's important. This government overreach literally stole everything from me. Did I make some mistakes there on J6? Yes. However, we're not talking about that. If you really want to go into it, listen, someone get me the footage from Fox News on January 6th at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. I'm on a loop every 10 minutes, getting beat in the head with a baton seven times, 6 times. Like, after that happens, you tend to get a little pissed off. I got the crap beat out of me for 3 hours, sprayed 100 times. And if I was at one of the pro-Gaza rallies or riots, I would have gotten 48 hours community service or a $50 fine.
And what you're saying sounds like sarcasm, and it's not. That's the sad part.
No.
As we know, district attorney who has resigned, thankfully, Matthew Graves, gave a pro-Hamas protester 48 hours community service for punching a female Capitol police officer in the face on video. The same exact charge, and more egregious in most instances than 95% of all J6ers that he wanted years and years and years behind federal prison bars.
Yep. So, the guy, I forget his name off the top of my head.
Matthew Graves.
No. The actual protester.
Oh, Arthur Ruben Camacho.
Okay, Arthur Ruben Camacho from Brooklyn, right? He drove in from Brooklyn.
Yep.
And I mean, it's crazy. Like, the double standard was just insane. I was facing 15 to 17 and a half years. And that's by one charge.
Yeah. They told me 30 to 40 years at my first pretrial release hearing.
Oh, yeah. They told me the same thing.
Yeah.
And then they superseded me 5 times.
Yeah.
But that was for my one charge, was 15 to 17 and a half years. And Robinson never got hurt. Like, we have his statement that the FBI took, and it says, oh, well, I banged my knee, but I didn't even go see the doctor the same day, but I saw him the next day, which then turned into 4 months later of, oh, I have horrible back spasms and I can't do this and I can't do that.
Yeah. Once the FBI got a hold of him and created a story for him.
Yeah. And then they said, oh, no, this is what you need to do. And this is who you need to say it to, and don't worry about it. And then they got a giant settlement out of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really is. And I hope that, I would imagine that the J6 story is getting old for some people. And I guess I'm speaking for myself, but there's so much more that we need to get to prevent this from happening in the future, and to find out who did it and who these people are that coordinated it within inside of our own government, from elected officials to unelected bureaucrats, because these people should not be in charge of our country. So there's a message that needs to be told still, because there's work that needs to be done. And that's the mission of WeTheJ6ers.com. It seems like that's every mission of J6tour.com. And
Yep.
brother in arms for life, man. I would gladly work with you anytime, because I know that it's that you have a bigger picture in mind, and it's the country and the state of it moving forward. And I know that we share the same goals and mission there. So God
Absolutely.
bless you. God bless you on your mission moving
Thank you.
forward. Again, j6tour.com. Chris Quaglin. You could see all his social media stuff down at the bottom. givesendgo.com/persecuted patriot, the persecuted patriot on all social media platforms. Chris, thanks for joining us, brother, and being a part and giving us an opportunity to make some content on your behalf and for WeJ6ers.com. I'm going to rerun this on Enrique Tarrio's Twitter page here in a little bit, so we'll get some views out there, and I'll send you some links to some videos I create. Thank you, brother, for joining us, man. It was good to have you, and God bless you moving forward, man. Be careful out there, brother.
Man, you too.
Those leftists are wild.
Yeah, they are.
Good luck on the rest of your tattoo too, brother.
Yeah, I'll tell you, or I'll show you when it all gets done.
Looking forward to it, man. Cheers.
All right, man.
So yes, that was Chris Quaglin. I personally got to witness a lot of the stuff that he went through at Northern Neck. So I know it's not a bunch of hyperbolic BS. I seen it with my own eyes. Again, the plight that the J6ers took was not your average plight to prison. And the fact that somebody, just because they don't like the person you're voted for, can put their thumb on the scales during your judicial process here in America, that's the process that we want to end and we want to expose, because it shouldn't be allowed. It's unconstitutional, and we are better than that as a people and as a nation. So again, I'm on X at WeTheJ6ers.com, at WeTheJ6ers on all platforms. Please follow us and check out the website, WeTheJ6ers.com, where we have speakers that are speaking on the behalf of themselves, and WeTheJ6ers.com across the country. You can book one for your conservative events, and I highly recommend checking out j6tour.com and seeing their work. And anyone that can get involved to help them push through the finish line is helping America push through the finish line. So highly recommended on doing so. God bless you all. God bless America. Check out WeTheJ6ers.com. And, unless you play for the NFL, never take a knee to communism.